Good morning and a warm welcome, everyone. I thank Sri Ravi Shankar Prasad ji for making time out for this conference for us. It is a great occasion for us to be in New Delhi as Legal Era completes 5 years of its existence. Legal Era serves as a unique platform to discuss business regulations. We are committed to create, promote, and strengthen legal awareness at corporate and individualistic level. With 42 plus thought-provoking conferences in Asia, we have created a benchmark for ourselves. With this, I welcome you all to the 4th Annual Legal Era Conclave 2015. Earlier, we had this conference in Mumbai and Singapore, but this year, we were very keen to hold this business leaders and lawyers meet in Delhi in the presence of legal luminaries and business leaders to discuss pro-business laws, industry challenges, and how changing the business legal landscape can make Invest in India a thumping reality. We have amongst us today as the chief guest for the conference, Sri Ravi Shankar Prasad ji, Union Minister, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, Government of India. We are honored with your presence, sir. With this, I would now like to invite Dr. Lalit Bhasin, chairperson for the conference, to give his address. Thank you.
It's very gratifying to see that Legal Era has completed 5 years of its existence. Legal Era has filled a very big gap which was existing so far as exchange of legal information, knowledge about the laws, brilliant articles being written. That is now you can find in Legal Era. And the topic chosen for today's, the 4th Annual Legal Era Conclave is changing the business legal landscape for Make in India to succeed. Of course, business is most important for development, but without legal support, you can't achieve anything. Even governments can't run without legal support, and we have such eminent people like Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad ji, a very eminent lawyer before he became the Union Minister, that he is part of a very eminent team of the ministers which are there in the present-day government. So that only shows that what sort of legal support is required for development, not only in the business and commercial deals, in the projects, in the economic development, but also to run the affairs of the government. This government itself has many eminent lawyers. The previous government also had lawyers, and right from the days of independence, we have been having lawyers to be a part of the administration, the part of the top leadership of the country. It is very gratifying for us to have the presence of the Honorable Minister, Shri Ravi Shankar Prasad ji, and also Mr. Vineet Nair, and we have a distinguished panel of experts who will speak on various topics. I hope all of you will be able to take home some very valuable inputs from the discussions, from the deliberations, from the presentations that are made during the course of this conclave. And with that, I thank you for being here today. I thank the Honorable Minister for accepting our request. So with these few words, I again welcome all of you and the Honorable Minister to this conclave. Thank you.
May I now humbly invite our Honorable Chief Guest, Sri Ravi Shankar Prasad, Minister for Communication and Information Technology, Government of India, to please share his address with the August gathering. Let's have a huge round of applause, and please help me welcome Sri Ravi Shankar Prasad.
Mr. Lalit Bhasin, Mr. Vineet Nair, ladies and gentlemen. It is a wonderful topic being debated today. Mr. Bhasin pointed out some eminent lawyers are a part of this ministry, and they were also a part of the previous ministry. Presence or absence of eminent lawyers is not the crucial criteria. What is important is good governance, fair governance, and good delivery. That should be the benchmark of any administration. When our government came to power, there were 86 group of ministers. The Prime Minister in one stroke annulled all of them and asked us to take decisions fairly and reasonable manner. Let me flag a basic ideological issue. Mr. Bhasin rightly pointed out, business is important for growth. This whole debate in India between equity and growth is quite a lingering debate for a long time. But ladies and gentlemen, growth without equity is possible. It will be pro-rich, it will be feudal, it will be elitist, it will be for the benefit of the few. But if you want genuine equity, it can come only and only with growth. That fundamental understanding is very important. The second thing is equally important. The policy of the government must be predictable. The decision making must be clearly understood as in a stable manner. If you keep on changing decisions every day, then certainty will not come in the business environment. Therefore, when the new government came to power, from which the Make in India started about, basically it has three premises. First, encourage people to come and invest in India, manufacture in India. Because of the enormous entrepreneur ability of Indians, because of the great human resources available in India, and the great market available in India. From there emerged Make in India program. Now, if this manufacturing has to grow from Make in India, people must be skilled also. From there emerged a Skill India program. And the third, Digital India. What is Digital India? Digital India is to bridge the divide between digital haves and digital have-nots. Digital India, which has basically three features. A, to create digital architecture as a utility for citizens of India. B, delivery of services electronically through digital means. And C, digital empowerment of Indians. On these three premises rose Digital India, whereby we are connecting national optical fiber network to nearly 2.5 lakhs Gram Panchayat of India in the coming 3 years. Once it goes there, we will have e-commerce, we have e-education, we will have e-health, we will have e-entertainment, because this is a non-discriminatory platform on which anyone can plug in. But remember one thing, one very basic important consideration. Regardless of how many laws you make or how many laws you undo, if the decision making is not fair at the political level, if good governance is not available at the top, growth can never come about. And that's what we have ensured. Our mantra given by the Prime Minister to all of us: whatever is doable shall be done, and whatever is not possible shall not be done. One last thing I have to submit, ladies and gentlemen, and that is this. Those who need to do business or those who are doing business also need to understand that India now is different. You try to do business in a straightforward manner, and surely a lot of good will come about. Thanks a lot. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your valuable insights with the August gathering. And ladies and gentlemen, on that very, very enriching note, may I now invite Mr. Vineet Nair, who is the former CEO of HCL Technologies and also the founder of Sampark Foundation, to please come forward on the podium to share his address with the gathering. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vineet Nair.
I think what's interesting is the points of conversations have changed. In our conversations, in our dialogue, Make in India, Made in India, transparency of doing business, ease of doing business, the vocabulary is significantly changing. The intentions also have significantly changed. Is ease of doing business a very important factor in our lives today? The answer is yes, because of the following reasons. Number one, we must understand that the business leader is in the business of business. His prime business is business, right? Ethically communicating and ethically doing business. He or she has an option of doing business in India or doing business outside India. If you look at the number of employees Indian IT companies have in Philippines, 100,000 employees, and the reason they have 100,000 employees in Philippines rather than have 100,000 employees in India is predominantly because it is easier to do that business in Philippines, and it was increasingly becoming tougher and tougher because of laws, regulations of doing that business in India. So if you go to China to set up a facility, they will give you approval in 7 days' time. They will give you a facility which is rent-free for a period of time, and they will give you manpower, training cost and salary for 1 year or 2 years, depending on how you negotiate to be able to set up the facility. That is the positive intent for them to set up services economy in China. If you go and set a facility in America, and when you look at the background of how jobs have come back in America, it will be very interesting for you to know, maybe some of you already know, that actually you will get rent-free facilities from the state governments. You will get 1 year of free salary exactly like China, and you will get discounts on the utility bills which you pay to the state. So there is a huge amount of incentives which the states are rolling out because they have a direct correlation between the business activity in the states, the jobs being created, and the economic activity. And therefore, the state governments are not talking about how they will ease doing business. They have moved to the next step of how they will incentivize and compete in the global landscape of how business would be done. So on ground, if India needs to become a competitive place for doing business, whether it is services or whether it is manufacturing, the first step is the articulation of the vision, which we've already seen this government, fortunately has brought that argument in our vocabulary, and there is a debate. However, I personally believe that is not going to be enough. For mass support of that momentum, for mass support for Inspector Raj to go away, for mass support for regulations to be cleaned up, for mass support for tax regulations to become easy to do business, all that, it's not enough for us to have e-portals and some regulation changes and some law changes. They are required, but I think a very meaningful debate on what the minister said in the very first instance, what is the relationship between economic growth, job development, and the role of business, and how do we celebrate business? And I think that debate is not happening enough. That correlation is not happening enough. And therefore, it would need participation of all constituent members, which is all citizens, all business houses, all social sectors, all political parties, so that dialogue makes it the center of the theme. And then we have to split this action into 3 steps. Number 1, do the easy ones, e-portals, do the easy ones. Number 2, simplify rules and regulations. And number 3, look at transformative decisions, which are bigger to take, like the land reform bills, which are bigger to take. But land reform bills, or ability to pass it or not pass it, should not hijack what can be done. So I think if we keep moving in this direction, it will be a long road, it will be a patient road, but it is the most critical road for that lady in Chhattisgarh village to be able to get food in her house by staying in her house for 12 months rather than being a nomad for 6 months. Thank you so much.
The 4th annual Legal Era Conclave focused on the Modi government's ambitious Make in India drive at the epicenter of all discussions. Apart from the massive push to the manufacturing sector, the deliberations also took into cognizance the importance of regulatory and legal aspects prevailing in the country that would go a long way in defining the success of Make in India.
The Prime Minister in this budget has allocated around 34,000 crore for the healthcare sector, and predominantly the spend is going to be in the rural sector. There's very little for the private sector in the budget, so really for the private sector it's not been such a happening budget, but if the rural sector really improves by virtue of the spend, then definitely in the long run it would even help the private sector.
The conclave saw a multitude of high-ranking corporate and legal dignitaries voicing their opinions on making the Make in India campaign a grand success. A panel on energy, resources and infrastructure debated on the role of public-private partnerships and enabling regulatory framework to contribute to the growth of the power sector, making the whole energy industry a viable business venture for investment.
So, if you see, I think we are, being from the manufacturing sector, we are very excited with the theme of Make in India. And government is making all its efforts to ensure that the regulatory framework is a facilitator for Make in India rather than a dampener. But we need to really observe that how does the three important laws, for example, the Land Acquisition Act, the Forest and Environment Clearance Act, and most importantly, the Mines and Mineral Development Act, how do they finally shape up? And also, government has come up in the media recently that they will bring up power projects, for example, which will plug and play. So government will ensure that the power projects are put up for auctioning only at a stage when all the environment clearances, the land availability, etc. is ensured. If those kind of things can happen quickly, I think we have a very bright future. At this point in time, I would say there is a lot of intent, there is a lot of work in progress which is happening in the parliament and in the regulatory framework. We are waiting for the final outcome on the positive side.
So while regulatory framework was the focus of the discussion, the speakers also touched upon the need for promoting and harnessing the potential of renewable energy to add momentum to the power sector. The panel also stressed upon the need to shift focus to execution and urged the government to walk the talk as the intent already does exist.
There were discussion on other sectors, which was, how renewable energy can help in sustaining, reduce the carbon footprints and all those kind of a thing. Then one of the gentlemen spoke about how regulatory framework can be more proactive. Those were the things which were trying to say that yes, we have the framework, let's execute it effectively, let's execute with the transparency and the trust.
As the discussion moved from the power sector to manufacturing, the panelists managed to reach one consensus. For Make in India to succeed, there is urgent need for drastic changes in regulatory frameworks and cutting out bureaucratic red tape. While the panel agreed that pro-business laws are already in place, there is a pressing need for deemed approvals and efficient clearances from government authorities.
See, pro-business basically each law is made with the intent of helping the business. There is no law which has been made to impediment or come as an obstruction to the business. It's basically the interpretation of those laws done by the bureaucracy or done by the officers who are executing the law that makes it difficult. So perhaps I would say that each law, like I said it in the course of this thing, that Water Act, Air Act and pollution, people feel environment law is the very draconian one, whereas I feel it's the most friendly one, because if you don't get permissions, if you don't get objections within 30 days of a filing, there's a deemed approval. So these sort of provisions of deeming approval, which takes away the hands of the bureaucracy of disturbing the growth and the pace of the business or its implementation out over there, should be brought in various laws. Like if you file a return, there is no objection, your return is deemed to have been assessed and passed as it was filed. So those are the type of issues which should be brought in. So perhaps I think so the government will do a human service to the business when it talks of these sort of reforms being brought in, of putting in deemed approval consents, deemed permissions out over there, and taking the bureaucracy out of the whole system. Because what one speaker said, that it is single window is created in front of 22 windows. It means those 22 windows don't disappear. It's a 23rd single window which comes up out over there. You have to still walk the path to even get to the last window out over there. So perhaps I would say each law is 100% business friendly, but the execution of those laws and the interpretation of those laws which is made by the bureaucracy is the main problem.
The conclave was also an opportunity for e-commerce players to voice their concerns around legal frameworks that define their operations. Understandably, the e-commerce space thrives on India's positive demographics and growing internet penetration. But their journey is also fraught with challenges.
I think we had my panels who also speak about the various challenges. They also looked at the challenges that the entrepreneurs are facing in today's market, given the new set of regulations, the challenges that each company faces in different manner, because there are various different models in terms of how e-commerce can happen in India. So everybody had a different view towards what they feel as the challenges, but everybody felt one thing, that Make in India will lead to a lot of opportunities for growth, and e-commerce platform can provide a lot of opportunities to entrepreneurs who start manufacturing in India to use e-commerce as a platform to reach a larger audience. In a normal brick and mortar world, you have a footprint to primarily one sort of a footprint in a city. By getting onto an e-commerce platform, you have an opportunity across the world, larger periphery, maybe a pan-India or even a world platform.
Well, I think the e-commerce side of it, like the panelists said, is really the delivery function of Make in India. So Make in India is focused on building things here, selling them here, and the best distribution model, the cheapest distribution model, is through e-commerce, through the huge commerce systems like Snapdeal and Flipkart, but all the other aspects of e-commerce, from transportation services and everything else, that really is the wheel delivering everything that's a part of the Make in India production goal.
The panel also went on to explore if the regulatory environment can be tweaked to give a fillip to online marketplaces.
I think today we don't have a specific regulator for the e-commerce industry or a specific law. We have an old set of laws which are being applied to a different world altogether. So I think the most important thing is the government needs to come in a consultative manner to sit across with the industry players to change it and to look at a law which is actually implementable and would also enable the industry per se.
Day one of the 4th annual Legal Era Conclave concluded with a panel discussion on corporate governance, ethics and building trust among stakeholders.
So far as doing business in India, a lot of deliberations happened throughout the day and a lot of difficulties were expressed. Regulatory constraints were highlighted, and the number of permissions and sanctions and approvals to be taken by each business was highlighted, and how that becomes a deterrent for foreign investors to come and actually do business in India, and how Make in India theme, which the Prime Minister had actually mooted, actually requires a whole lot of effort to make it really happen. And people are not convinced by a simple slogan. That's the first aspect. So far as the law firm business is concerned, we know that everybody is talking about permitting foreign law firms to operate in India, and hopefully it'll happen soon. If it happens, there will be a huge churn and realignment of both Indian and foreign law firms, and it will be a very interesting development to watch.
The panel also went on to emphasize that law and business must coexist and complement each other.
Law and business must coexist. There should be a greater understanding on the part of business people about law, and there should be a greater understanding of business on the part of legal people. Unless these two complement each other, it will be a disaster.
The day's proceedings ended with the panel concluding that the role of independent directors was critical for day-to-day functioning and also for succession planning.
The specific subtopic that was assigned to me was relating to the role of independent directors in enhancing corporate governance in the companies. And my basic theme was that independent directors add enormous value in the context of corporate governance by being A, custodians of values and beliefs of the organization, providing requisite challenge to the assumptions that the management is making, being a part of risk management process, being a part of strategy planning of the organization, and last but not the least, being a very important part of succession planning of the leadership team in the company.